Hey guys, what's happening? Wasn't gonna make a video today because it's my off day. I've taken a couple days for myself after really just busting my ass with my business and with my own health, and just hard at work in both departments. Taking a few days of decompressing and taking some days off of Detox, and I just watched a very moving documentary, a documentary that honestly blew my mind, as simple as it was. I typically stay away from all fear-mongering documentaries, all documentaries that are revolved around some type of horror story or, you know, murder or anything, rape, anything of that sort. I stay away from anything that kind of gets my pain body going or my heart racing, or, you know, I feel that stimulation coming in from the pain, or it makes me nervous, like, you know, I immediately shut those types of programs off. And I encourage you to do the same, especially when you're open and vulnerable on this healing journey. 99% of what's out there, first of all, isn't the whole story, and second of all, doesn't actually nourish you on a soul level to hear about horror stories, right? All it does is like perpetuate the pain body, which is what this society is our masterminds, you know, or the society as a whole is a mastermind at perpetuating that pain. So anyway, I read the description of this documentary. It sounded like something I would never watch. It was called Natascha Kampusch, K-A-M-P. I forget how to spell her last name, but it was Natascha, K-A-M-P something, and Kampusch, P-U-S-H, I think, K-A-M-P-U-S-H. And the description said, a woman was kidnapped and tortured for 8.5 years, but she taught herself how to, it said, but she taught herself how to live, right? Or it said, like, a woman was tortured and kidnapped for 8.5 years. You think she would be dying, but she taught herself how to live. I don't remember the exact words, but in any case, it really stimulated me, and I was like, wow, that's fascinating. I clicked on it, and within the first 5 or 10 seconds of seeing her eyes and how bright she was, I said, holy shit, if this story is true and a woman could look like that after coming out of it, this is unbelievable. And within the first minute, I knew I was going to watch the whole thing, despite how nervous it made me, because of seeing her response to pain, right? Her response to the traumatic events. Her response was unbelievable. First of all, her story makes my story, my 3 and some 3 point something, I don't know, it's probably close to 3.5 years of suicidal depression, panic attacks, absolutely crippling despair, just everything, every mental illness, mental issue known to mankind. It made my journey look like I was basically floating on clouds in heaven. This woman was in Vienna, and she was kidnapped at the age of 10, and she was put into a basement, like basically a concrete cell that was hidden in unbelievable ways. I mean, it was like in the trapdoor in the garage. Once you went down there, you had to open a safe, and then you opened the safe, and that safe went into another room, and then basically led into her 5x5 cell where she had no daylight, no nothing. And the reason I'm sharing this with you is because I was extremely touched and moved by her story and how she talks about it. And there's so many lessons from this short 40-minute documentary. There's so many lessons on illness and tough times and dark days. It's unbelievable. And one of the things that stuck out to me the most was Well, I'll just tell you her story first. Basically, she was taken at the age of 10, and for 8.5 years she was kept in the dungeon, and she hardly ate any food. He beat her, and it was she never hardly ever saw the daylight, and she was living in a moldy basement, no contact with the outside world. And clearly this is a man who's extremely deranged and just next level mental illness beyond heavy metal poisoning, right? I'm sure heavy metal poisoning adds to the equation, but this is another level of sort of biochemical bad apple, right? Anyway, you know, she was it's probably the worst possible life someone could live for 8.5 years. I have never heard of a crazier story. The only other story I've heard that while I was in my illness that like kept me alive was a story about the man who the World War II guy who was kidnapped by Japanese soldiers and tortured for years and years and years. There's a movie that they made about him. His name is Louis Zamperini, and I think the name of the book and movie is called The Impossible or something like that. I don't know. I read the book a couple years ago and it was amazing. But just Google Louis Zamperini and his story is unbelievable, and that's a story that like kept me alive. I was like, wow, like that guy made it through that. I was like, I could do this. I could stay alive. And had I had a story like this, Natasha girls, that would have been another amazing tool to have in the arsenal to stay alive during those you know days where I was there was a very thin line between life and death. And so you know, when I was going through my crazy journey, I really couldn't find any like extreme stories that really resonated with me, that really felt true and deep and felt like they had a happy ending. That Louis Zamperini is one of those stories, and this is another one of those. She, after those 8.5 years, she finally developed the courage to run away, because when she grew up, he was taking her around and basically, you know, doing chores and tasks and jobs with her around the city, but she wasn't allowed to talk to anyone. But at some point, she gathered up the strength and she ran away while they were home together in the backyard. After several years, he allowed her to come upstairs, and then several years more, he allowed her to go outside. So the lessons from this and how it translates to detox and illness and just suffering in general are just amazing. And she said, you know, she said, I was filled with so much hate that the only way I could survive was to forgive him almost immediately after each thing he did. Right? So she's actually almost like, she feels extremely enlightened after being traumatized for so many years, which is a spiritual concept that's pretty familiar actually. It's the trauma can actually lead to the escaping of the physical, and you know, so she's very enlightened. She's really amazing. And she said the only way my body would have shut down on me and I would have died from physical illness had I not forgave him on the spot for all of the things that he did. So she, you know, she would be there on her birthday in the basement and he would beat her, and you know, and she would forgive him. And it's such a powerful concept, like to think about all the things that happen to us on a given day. Like, you know, I know myself, I'm doing really well right now, but like I still go through these hours or minutes of sometimes days of like being pissed off at someone for such such a small thing, right? Finding it so hard to have forgiveness be that homeostasis. But if you can train yourself to forgive everything, it's not about just forgiving other people, right? That's crucial and huge. Forgiving your parents for being toxic or passing on toxins or treating you like shit. Forgiving all of your past lovers. Forgiving anyone who's ever wronged you in your life. Because all of it is part of this grand tapestry towards creating your highest optimal self. And the forgiveness is that magical tool that allows us to transmute the pain and the horror and the terror and the fear to love, peace, right? So, and on the note of forgiveness, you know, Natasha in the documentary, she spoke about how she could see that he was a conscious being and he knew what was going on and he was aware, right? So there's always this debate of like, are we evil or are we good? Like, is there such a thing as evil? And she talked about how he was aware of things that were going on, but she knew that deep down he was so injured and so broken and so hurt that somehow, in some crazy way, he thought that by kidnapping her and by holding her for that many years, that his life situation would be solved, that his life's problems would be solved with this. And it sounds crazy, but I'm actually a firm believer in that we are acting out in terms of like escaping suffering, you know, that almost all of our actions come and stem from escaping suffering. So, you know, he was doing these crazy, horrific things to her, and she was able to see through to the core of it all and say, wow, somehow, somewhere, he thinks that by doing this to me, he's gonna become free. And, you know, we'll never know whether that's the truth or not, whether that's the deepest truth, but wouldn't you rather follow that mindset and that paradigm, knowing that it allows you to more easily forgive, knowing that it allows you to be more of a flowy individual, accepting what is, being, you know, and loving and you know? So it's like we don't know if that's for sure the case. I speculate it is from my journey. But because we'll never know, we may as well adopt a paradigm that makes us the happiest, you know, and makes it more conducive to inner peace. We also have to forgive society, forgive the powers that be. You know, one of the biggest things that people are doing today, and I'm guilty of it, you know, is rebounding. So we like hear all this crazy shit going on in the world, and we rebound to the other side of basically meeting them halfway, which is like, all right, so you have someone who's, you know, a government that's fucking people up, right? Then you have someone who's on the other end of the spectrum who's saying, the government's fucking everything up, the government's fucking everything up. What you create is that duality. You create that war-like situation, which is all part of the same bullshit game, right? You want to collapse that game. You want to collapse that whole model. And the way to collapse it is to step out of it, right? Stepping out of it is, yeah, all this shit is fucked up, but I have my life and I'm grateful and I'm happy and I love myself, right? Those are the things that collapse the game. And it's not going to be this, you know, revealing of all of the government activities that's going to change the world. The world is going to be changed when people like Natasha transmute a situation like that and say, it's okay, I forgive him. When he died, because he killed himself after he was caught, I felt so bad. I felt so sorry for him. So, you know, it's not about it's not about rebounding and hating back or blaming. It's just about seeing it for how it is, right? Seeing the bullshit for how it is and stepping out of it entirely, escaping the game. And that's how you make a true transformation in your own life. And then that is the most contagious sort of vaccination to the virus that is going around today. Non-toxic vaccination, of course, without mercury and aluminum being injected into you. But the other important point of what she was saying in the documentary is like, look, whatever you focus on grows, right? So if we focus on toxicity, we lose. If we are constantly focusing on the toxins and where they are and how, and looking for every little, possible molecule that we're being affected with, we lost. We lose the battle. Because you cannot win that type of battle. It's everywhere around us. We're not in a pristine environment anymore, right? So instead of focusing on the illness, you focus on the love, right? So you do all these amazing things for your body, and you take the supplements, and you take the superfoods, and you clean your colon, but at the same time, you focus on love and healing and joy and peace. You have to focus on that. That's where you put your energy. That's where you put all of your, you don't want to reattach the fear-based mind to the toxicity world of, gotta do the dishes, gotta go to work, gotta make money, gotta do this. Oh my God, the world is toxic. Gotta avoid tap water, gotta do this, can't get vaccinations, so what the trick is that you want to constantly be expanding yourself, right? So you want a little bit of stress, right? So the stress that comes with oh, okay, that's not good, right? Or I want to avoid this. There's a little bit of stress because you have to make a life change, but you don't want to start it all at once, going from normalcy to avoiding every toxin on the planet all at once. It's not healthy, it's not possible, it's not sustainable. The way to do it is to just slowly expand yourself, right? Slowly, almost it's like a etheric stretching of your energetic body. It's like a stretching and opening of being aware to all what's really going around you. And that's the same is true not just for toxins, but for research, for consciousness expanding research. You can't handle so much at once. You just want to be pushing the envelope little by little, which is what ayahuasca is not good for. Ayahuasca kind of blasts open that envelope, if that's even a term, blasting open the envelope. But we must focus on the love, okay? And then implement little by little, every step of the way, new things that enhance your health on a physical level. And you don't want to do it with stress, okay? So stress is the real enemy. Stress is the killer, right? So you don't want to reattach all of your neurotic behavior with life and then reattach that into the healing world. It's the same type of thing of a rebound. You want to escape the whole game. You want to collapse the whole paradigm. So anyway, I highly encourage you to watch the documentary. It's just called Natascha Kampusch, Kampush, on Netflix. She also talked about, well, first of all, she now owns the house that that she was kept in for 8.5 years. So she's just a being of light, right? There's no doubt about it. But yeah, another thing she talked about is the victim, right? She's like, I don't want to come back into society being the victim, being this person that's never going to fit in, never going to be looked at as someone of high regard, because through her story, through all of our stories, we're never the victim. We're never the victim. You cannot win if you play the victim card, right? We're being injected with vaccinations. We're being given Gerber poisonous food when we're 2 years old, and we don't have a choice, right? So it's definitely not our choice to be doing those things. And there's definitely sort of a fine line of free will, right, in our world right now. But nonetheless, it's all happening it's all happening as some part of grand tapestry of creating the optimal you. You can't necessarily achieve the amazing bliss and peace and joy and enlightenment without going through the really, really shitty dark days. You needed something to refer to. You need some sort of transformation point, right? This is like all nature. So, like a caterpillar and a butterfly, right? So we're never the victims, right? And even if you're extremely ill, it's important to reclaim your power and say, this is what's happening. It's okay. I'm going to win, right? And I'm not going to win by creating a war or playing in the war game. I'm going to step out of the game entirely, be a sovereign individual, concentrate on my health, concentrate on my love and my peace. This orb of this, our real life, all of the other shit is noise, right? Like this woman's documentary is evidence of that. She lived in a cell 5x5, and she probably had resemblance of stability and peace more than a lot of people on the planet. And that's because our world is not our house, our world is not our lawn, our world is not our office or our job or our bank accounts or our money or our watches or our nice cars. Our world is lived in this orb right here, right? Some people, their world is only up here, but really a world should be lived in the entire body, in a toroidal field, right? Our aura is a toroidal field, and that is where our life is lived, in that aura, in that field. How clean and peaceful can you make that orb? How joyous can you make that orb? That's what your life is. That's you. That's your life. That's the real jewels. That's the testament to a life, right? So that's where the work is done. And we're never the victim. We're never the victim. We'll step out of the whole game, create a new species of people that are centered on integrity and love and peace, centered on health and sustainability. It's like a new species of human that's arising. You see it all over. You see like the awakening or collective awakening or collective consciousness shifting or all sorts of ascensions, right? There's all different websites about ascension. It's all happening as some part of grand tapestry, grand cycle of life, right? We're cycling out the old, the greed, the killing, the raping, the hunger, the starving, the hatred, and we're bringing in a new era of light and love and peace and joy. Detox being, in my opinion, the #1 route to achieve that clear vessel. But in any case, we're never the victim. Love yourself, work on this orb, concentrate on this orb, everything else will come into place. Alrighty, peace guys.